Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin and I love sharing tips, tricks, and all the mistakes we made on our trip so you don't make the same mistakes on yours. Today, we're talking about Paros. Now, this is not going to be a typical video in which I take you through how do you get there, what do you do, where should you go. These are really more along the lines of all the personal notes that I had when we were in Paros, and I think this would be helpful to some of you who are currently planning your trip because these are really tips and just personal experiences that I didn't see anywhere else. So without further ado, let's rapid fire through the 15 things I wish I knew before visiting Paros. Tip number 1, you need a car. Now, unless you're planning to stay put in one village or you're doing a day trip as part of a bigger cruise thing, I really highly recommend just getting a car because it's the easiest way to get around and also the most efficient. Now, in the past, we have tried also doing buses, but the bus system is really inefficient in Paros, and a lot of the times they don't stick to their designated schedules. So we found ourselves waiting around a lot for the buses to come. And that brings us to tip number 2, which is go with a local agency. Now, of course, if you're more comfortable going with something that you know, which is like a Hertz, Avis, a Six, by all means, definitely go with that. But if you want to look for something a little bit more affordable and it'll still get you from point A to point B, I recommend just going with a local car agency. Now, I do have to caveat that sometimes their fleet of vehicles can be a little bit more dated, so you might not have access to Apple CarPlay and other things, but for the most part, Paros is a rather flat island, so you really don't need all those extra things that come with vehicles at times. So if I were you, I would just recommend going with a local agency, getting a very basic car that can just get you from point A to point B. Tip number 3, let's set our expectations about the 2 main towns. Now, the 2 main towns that you'll come across in Paros is Parikia and Naoussa. By all means, these are 2 beautiful towns. They have those cobblestone streets and it's, for the most part, super vibey. Now, our first time we stayed in Naoussa, and that was, I think, in 2021. And at that time, it was very authentic. It didn't feel too over commercialized yet. And for the most part, we absolutely loved our stay. But this last year when we went back, it just felt a lot more commercialized. It felt like the vendors knew that there was a lot of American tourists and things were a lot more expensive, but for no reason. And to be honest, I just really felt that people were there to kind of recreate a moment, maybe recreate a TikTok video, and it just didn't feel as chill and as authentic as when we went back in 2021. So just know that if you are staying in Parikia or Naoussa, you will be paying a premium and it is a little bit more commercialized. Tip number 4, shopping. Now, when it comes to shopping, I want to say in Naoussa, a lot of the stores are now copy and paste. It doesn't really feel very authentic and genuine Greek little shops that you'll go into and find just like mom and pop's jams or whatnot. Like that really doesn't exist. A lot of the stores that you'll find is like jewelry stores, pretty dress stores, and they are going to charge a premium. Now, if you do want to buy something, I would recommend going to Parikia instead of Naoussa. And in Parikia, we just found the prices to be a little bit cheaper, and there's more variety in Parikia overall. Tip number 5, skip the smaller villages. Now, on our first trip to Paros, we only ended up doing 3, and that was Naoussa, Parikia, and Lefkis. And I was so bummed out we didn't get to do both Marpissa and Prodromos. So the last time that we went, which was last year, we ended up setting aside half a day to especially visit those villages. And honestly, I don't think they really live up to the hype, because when you're doing your homework on TikTok and on Instagram, you see all these pretty photos, and those 2 villages definitely pop up, and it was really great to be able to kind of get away from the crowds a little bit. But these villages are super small and they're not really close by, so you do end up having to drive a bit to get to both these towns. And besides that one pretty photo that you see, there was really nothing else much to the villages itself. So if you don't have the time and if you don't have the right transportation, I really wouldn't stress on making that happen. Tip number 6, where do you find the whitewashed alleys with the cobblestone streets? Now, for the most part, you're going to be able to find this in both Naoussa and Parikia, and you do get to see a little bit of this in some of the smaller towns as well, but for the most part, you do get a lot of this in the 2 main towns. Now, one thing you should note is if you're trying to shoot photos in these types of settings, try to go during midday, because if you go too early, it's really kind of dark in the alleys, and if you go too late, like mid-afternoon, you get a lot of people in your photos. So I think that the best time to shoot these cobblestone streets is right before lunchtime, right when the sun is kind of strongest and is directly kind of shining above those streets. I think think that makes for the best photos and it has the best lighting. Tip number 7, make dinner reservations. Now, we're not really big dinner reservation people. We kind of just like to wing it. And if we're lucky, sometimes 2 or 3 days out, I will make a dinner reservation based on maybe a recommendation or something that I saw online. Now, Paros is not going to be one of those islands that you're going to want to just like wing last minute, because it's gotten really popular over the last couple of years. And now, especially during Naoussa, during sunset time or during dinner, a lot of the bars and restaurants will be completely full. Now, there will be a couple of restaurants that are walk-in only, and that saved us. But even going into a walk-in restaurant, try to go before they open, because let's just say they open around 7. A lot of people are going to probably be in line already at around 6:40. So if you arrive at 7, you're definitely not getting a table for the first weekend. Tip number 8, let's talk about the food. Now, compared to a couple of years ago during our first trip to Paros, I want to say the food has definitely gone a little bit downhill. In terms of quality, it's gone down a little bit, and prices have drastically gone up. Now, there was this one restaurant that we were really excited to go back to, and this was the only restaurant that I made reservations to during our entire trip. And we even confirmed with our Airbnb host, and this is a restaurant that she grew up going to because they live on the island and they were very familiar with kind of the landscape. And she even told me that the quality has gone down and the prices have gone up tremendously. So if you are looking for the best meal of your life, I don't know if you should look in Naoussa or Parikia. I'm sure they'll give you the vibes, but in terms of quality and cost, I'm not sure you'll find it there. Tip number 9, napkin parties. Now, these napkin parties have really popped off on social media in the last couple of years, to the point where I almost made a reservation to one myself, but I ended up not doing it because the restaurant was rated pretty poorly. It was actually, I think, a 3.3 on Google reviews. So I was like, okay, I'm not dealing with the whole hassle of just dealing with that. But if you are looking for the same type of vibes, that like napkin party in which around 8 or 9 during your dinner, the entire restaurant turns into like this huge ABBA and Mamma Mia party, then what you can do is there are a couple of restaurants around the Naoussa harbor that will do this, but just do note that you're definitely not going to be paying for the meal and you're going to be paying more for the vibe. Now, in terms of the food, definitely don't expect much, because this is also not a very typical Greek thing. It was something that was blown up on social media. So do note that the food quality that you're going to be paying for is probably going to be subpar. Tip number 10, the famous Linardo photo spot. Now, this was kind of a disappointment to us because I like to shoot photos really early in the morning before we even start our day, so that it's done, it's over with, and that for the most part, it's cool weather. However, if you're looking to get photos at this particular spot, the best time to go is actually going to be mid-afternoon, because if you decide to go in the morning, the sun is going to be directly in your shot and your entire photo is going to be insanely backlit. So if you are trying to get this specific shot, my recommendation is to go between 2 to 4, right before kind of the PM crowd comes in for dinner. That's going to be your best bet for a good photo. Tip number 11, do the Antiparos day trip. Now, when we first were planning our trip to Paros, we really didn't factor in any other islands that we were going to hop to nearby. And for the most part, we thought we were going to stay strictly on Paros. But I'm so glad we decided to go to Antiparos, because it's honestly such a great break from all the crowds and all the tourists that are in Paros. Now, if you do decide to go to Antiparos, you have 2 options in getting there. You can either take the ferry from Parikia or you can take it from Punda. Now, the Punda option is going to be a lot faster. I think that ferry is only maybe about like 15-ish minutes versus Parikia, which is going to be about 30 minutes to get to Antiparos. One thing you do have to note is that these ferries don't operate year-round and they only operate seasonally. So if you are certain you want to do a day trip to Antiparos, try to figure out if the ferry that you want to take is also running. Tip number 12, Paros is becoming the new Mykonos. Now, this might just be a personal opinion, but we stayed in Naoussa and I felt like for the most part, it felt very pretentious. Like people were really there to chase after a vibe or a photo or something that they simply saw off of TikTok. And it didn't really feel like the other Greek islands in which you're not really rushed to do anything. You're not really trying to impress anyone. And for the most part, it just feels a little less chill than all the other Greek islands. Tip number 13, if you are looking for kind of like a quieter sanctuary, an area that we loved was Piso, Livadi. Now, this area is a very small strip of beach and they also have a couple of restaurants as well. We found this area to be very quiet, very laid back, a little bit more authentic, and a little less pretentious. So if you are looking for a little bit of a slower pace, a little bit of more of a chill day, I highly recommend checking out Piso Livadi. Tip number 14, water taxis. Now, if you don't want to deal with the buses and if you don't want to get a car, what you can do are rely on water taxis. And typically you'll find these at the harbors in both Parikia and Naoussa. And what you'll see is this sign that has all the stops during the day and all the times that they are stopping at those destinations. So this is really popular if you're doing a beach day. There's a lot of beaches that you can do on a water taxi, and it's actually a lot faster to get to all of the beaches on water than it is to get to on land. So if you are planning this big beach day, I recommend just doing and relying on the water taxis. And especially if you're going to Santa Maria, which is more of a beach club type of a vibe, you will be drinking. And the last thing you want to do is deal with parking, deal with trying to get around. So my recommendation is if you're doing a beach day, maybe look into the water taxis. And the last tip that I have is the south part of the island. Now, if you are looking for something a bit more low key, authentic, a little bit more like you're on an actual Greek island that hasn't been discovered yet, I would highly recommend checking out the south and the southwest part of the island. Now, definitely set your expectations because this is going to be a little less manicured, a little less Instagram worthy, but you do find a lot of that authenticity that you might be missing from the other parts of the island. And with that, those are the 15 things that I thought would have been really useful going into our trip to Paros. If that was helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.